Demo! Good afternoon, my name is Salome Sega and I'm the director of New Inc., the New Museum's cultural incubator that supports creative practitioners working across art, design, science, technology, architecture, all of the things. I'd like to begin with a grounding and a land acknowledgement. To recognize the land is an expression of gratitude and an appreciation to those whose territory you reside on, and a way of honoring the indigenous people who have been living and working on the land before us. We would like to acknowledge the Lenni Lenape people, who are the original inhabitants of Lenapehoking and the island of Manhattan. So, New Inc. is at the end of our 11th year. Last September, we welcomed a new incubator cohort of 82 artists and designers and technologists who have been realizing and scaling projects that cover a range of topics, from large multi-stakeholder city planning initiatives to building cooperatively managed platforms to tech-enabled storytelling projects. New Inc. members are stewarding new and visionary ideas. And Demo is our annual festival that celebrates the work of our cohort members while also hinting and pointing to what's next in New Inc. culture. So it's a festival that embraces the unknown and yet to be named. So in this year's festival, I think you'll see the presenters are invested in practices of redefining, remixing, reworlding, and pushing back on convention. If you don't understand something you hear on stage or that you see in the exhibitions, that might be a place to lean in and ask questions. Demo's signature is the hallway chatter. I think the best part of festivals are the moments in between talks where you find someone and you pull them and you discuss the thing that you just both experienced. In a period of boredom, Alice Walker wrote a book of one-line poems called A Poem Traveled Down My Arm. And there's so many gems in the book, like a poem that goes, "You can't eat money, and if you could, it would make you sick." But the poem that I love and I hold on to the most is, "You will die in the fires of small talk." We've all been there, right? So this is not a festival where small talk happens. Don't let that happen here. This is a festival where big ideas come to flourish. So before I pass it off to our speakers today, I just want to give you the Demo 101. I know a lot is happening. I know many of you probably looked at the website and you were like, what? How am I going to catch all of this? So here is a rundown. Here are the key dates. I try to bullet things so you can hold on to it. Ready? So key dates. Everything is happening June 4th through the 6th in terms of talks and parties and performances. There's a festival party on June 6th. The showcases that you see on view will extend through June 22nd. The 5 New Inc. tracks function as our festival themes, so that's art and code, creative science, cooperative studies, social architecture, and extended realities, who you're going to hear from today. So you're here for the main stage session. So each main stage session opens with a keynote introduction by an invited guest, and then we'll hear from 5 of our New Inc. members. So here are our keynote speakers for the week. Today we're going to hear from the wonderful Gabriel Massan, Rashad Newsom, and then tomorrow we're going to hear from Sarah Zodi and Yancy Strickler, and then on Friday we'll close with Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson. And then here are 25 New Inc. members who are speaking on stage this week. You'll get to know them very intimately. 5 are up right here in the front row. Each day of the festival starts with a power lunch. These are opportunities to sample New Inc.'s professional development and mentorship offerings. Tomorrow, our mentors will host public office hours, and on Friday, we're hosting something called Teen Demo, which features a slate of New Inc. projects that serve young people. So if you have a young relative or work at a school, please come back on Friday morning. Studio Demo is our broadcast hub that features over 36 speakers who are bringing further context to the ideas and questions we're asking in the program. These talks start at 2 p.m. each day and are 30 minutes each. If you haven't already, please take some time to explore the showcases around the floor. There are 32 projects on view. And the Demo store, which is right around the corner, features limited edition merch from Cumtees, an LA brand started by painter Sonia Samberlu, but the store also features over 25 products from New Inc. alumni. And so what's a festival without performances and parties? Tonight and tomorrow night, we're hosting Disco Kina, a real-time club theater experience from the minds of Team Rolfes and Club Cringe. We're in for a night of digital drama featuring AI superfan Kina. And on Friday, let's spin off into the summer night and close our opening program with a party featuring an all-star lineup of DJs. And please, please, I beg, don't come unless you're ready to dance. Remember the thing I said about small talk. So to close, I want to thank our incredible team of over 100 people who are working behind the scenes to make sure that the gears are turning, we stay on time, and that we look good. Can we give these people a huge round of applause? And I want to thank our 2025 sponsors and partners without whom none of this would be possible. Thank you for seeing our work and for asking us to dream bigger. And New Ink team, we're here. If you're a New Ink team member, can you raise your hand? From documents to spreadsheets into reality, we birthed another festival. Okay, so with that, I'd like to introduce our first keynote speaker. Gabriel Massan is a Berlin-based multidisciplinary artist, world builder, and gatherer. Through a conceptual approach he calls fictional archaeology, Gabriel works to expand an accounting of Latin American history and challenge the idea of third world. I could read a long list of Gabriel's accomplishments about how he's won awards for his Serpentine Commission, Third World, the Bottom Dimension, or tell you about how he's made visuals for Madonna. He knows Madonna. But the thing you should know is how Gabriel chooses to work and who he chooses to work with is just as important as what he makes. We're honored to get a sneak peek into your process and how you are shaping XR. Following Gabriel's talk, we'll get right into our extended realities track presentations where we're going to hear from 5 lovely members. This is a track of artists and creative technologists blurring the lines between physical and digital worlds through immersive storytelling. So with that, let's welcome Gabriel to the stage.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Ooh, it's a bit loud. First of all, I really wanted to thank the New Ink team for once again inviting me. I was supposed to come in 2024, but this time it worked, so I'm really happy to be here. My name is Gabriel Massan. I came all the way from Berlin, Germany, but I'm originally from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. I was just thinking about this keynote and how could I present a really quick run-through about my work. And I started to ask myself how everything really started for me. And I come from a really violent region in Rio de Janeiro, which is also one of the least developed in the country. And I grew up in a really intense environment surrounded by the war on drugs. And at the time, I was a child actor. It was my first career. And after my parents couldn't afford the acting classes anymore, I started to really give a bit more of attention to gaming. And I used to go to internet cafes every day. In Brazil, we call it LAN houses. And at the time, all the kids were playing Counter-Strike and GTA, while I was the only queer kid playing The Sims and Second Life, which is like life simulators. And at the time, I didn't know why I was so fascinated about life simulators and RPG, like fantasy games. But maybe it was kind of like a response to rethink my surrounding and also to allow me to exist in a different way. And then from that, my auntie donated me my first PC, which was my cousin's old PC, I think. And my brother gifted me a copy of The Sims. And from that moment, everything changed in my life because I was obsessed about machinima. So I was a soap opera director on YouTube. I was a magazine editor. I was director of a talk show, and all this within the Sims community online. And I was only 13. But then high school came, and after college, and being an artist was not really a possibility for me. I also didn't know much about contemporary art. But then later on, I ended up dumping my graduation and got a scholarship into a school of art in Rio. But also to go to that school of art would be like 3 hours from my house to the school for 2 hours of class, and then 3 hours from the school to my house. And I was always really fascinated about the contrasts of the city, how segregated it was. And also when I started, it was all about video performance, and people were not really keen to see my face in my art. And I decided that I wouldn't use my image, the image of myself, in my artwork anymore. And from 2017, I started to work with digital sculptures. And throughout the years, I built this huge archive of sculptures, actors, monuments, which were all based in my references of anime, Brazilian cinema, plants like Afro-religious codes. And once I immigrated to Germany, I was feeling quite alone, and I started to place these sculptures into wider compositions, really creating environments with them. And late 2021, after leaving the creative industry and going into more the institutional arts space, I started a commission with Serpentine's Arts Technologies in London. And while I was developing the commission, I made my first experiment with game engines, really referencing what I used to do when I was really young, basically transforming my work into a tool so other people could enjoy, rethink, and manipulate my work, like I did with Will Wright, The Sims. And then from Embodied on Abundant Domain, which was the first work, came Continuity Flaws. But actually, I want to come back. In Embodied on Abundant Domain, I'm taking inspiration from Saidiya Hartman's concept of critical fabulation. So in Embodied on Abundant Domain, I'm performing speculative scenarios to investigate how queer club culture, systemic violence, and virtual identities could help us map out the material world and our relationships with it. And then Continuity Flaws was my second work within the game engine. So what I do is basically build this many kinds of simulations, all referencing my own perspective and about the consequences of inequality, growing up in Brazil and also immigrating to Germany. Continuity Flaws, also from 2023, while I was developing the commission with the Serpentine's Art Technologies. Continuity Flaws takes inspiration from the idea of the plenum, which is an assembly of all members of a group, and it's about Denise Ferreira da Silva publication Unpayable Debt, which goes through the known visible world and examines the relationship between coloniality, global capital, and quantum entanglement, but really about how Black performance can be a breach in the current hegemony. And then the whole simulation, it's about these different life forms. They're jumping between islands, connecting, separating, and reuniting again. Oh, can I get the audio for this video, please? My name is Gabriel Massan. I'm from Rio de Janeiro, and I'm a multidisciplinary visual artist. So continuity follows the loophole, drawn my interest in investigating the concepts presented by Denise Ferreira da Silva in her book Unpayable Debt, and they really connected with the trauma of inequality growing up in Latin America. The desire behind the piece is to systems of inequality by presenting a cycle of precariousness where the characters are always repeating the same actions. But it also interconnects with the idea that Black performance is a breach in the current hegemony.
So Gabriel is an artist that's really invested in decentralization. This is also one of the reasons that we're super excited to partner with Outnet Arts. Gabriel is really an artist that has an ecosystemic mind. They think a lot about the different ways to look at inequality, look at different possibilities of life through their work. I think we all know that the pilgrimage model of art is not so central anymore. Everyone's excited to see how art can come to them, how it can enter their lives in a really unique and organic way. We're really excited to work with someone like Gabriel, who's really invested in this, really invested in storytelling, but also invested in empowering other people's stories, seeing how the work they can create can empower others.
And then later last year, I was also selected for the Circa in London. But what I really wanted to talk about, and that's why I was telling the story when I was a teenager, it's about Third World. So Third World is my second game. It was built together with a team of more than 15 people. It took a long 3 years to make this happen, and it was also my first solo exhibition in 2023. So Third World was a way to, again, enable the audience to manipulate, change, and have authorship within my work. And I was really interested in how live streaming can also be a performance. And so Third World, I invited Brazilian artists Castiel Vitorino Brasileiro, Novíssimo Edgar, and Lisa to think about how they navigate in the world, but also in an attempt to understand how you're replicating the same notions of navigation from the colonial times into the digital realms. And so Third World is allowing the player, the visitor, to become an agent inside this world, to really have responsibility over their own actions, and also they are invited to watch themselves, watch other playing, and also the idea of being watched. But Third World is a free-to-download, multi-level, single-player PC game. Conceptualized, it has this conscious-raising tool, and promotes agency and responsibility over micro-actions. It recognizes the individual, the user as a social agent. Like, Third World has been touring since 2022, before its official release, but the game was only released in 2023. The last exhibition was earlier this year at the Bazaar in Brussels, and I was also able to build this new kind of like sculpture. So that's why I said that it's like everything that you're doing inside the game is being live streamed, and every action that you take triggers this screen to perform somehow like a multi-perspective take. Sorry, it's quite complex. And then I went back to the idea of machinima and how I could really perform with my own characters live and really be able to use the actions inside the performance to change the virtual world. And then also to allow my work to be a critique and to give more highlight to really cases of police brutality in Brazil, especially in São Paulo. And then again, going back to the idea of critical fabulation. And then it was possible to conduct larger conversations working with radical storytelling as a tool to look to entanglement of localized stories with broader phenomena and power structures. So Balfter is kind of like an attempt to create a scenario that is based in the friction between fear and excitement, because I was really looking into this specific moment where the illegal rave was happening, and also the police did the operation. So it was the moment that the first bomb dropped and how people were really feeling inside and how they were relating to each other. It was first presented in the X Museum in China, and then last year in São Paulo in the Museum of Modern Art. And also this goes also to how do we get there, which is about train surfing that started in Brazil, has a movement. And I was again really interested in the violent take of really hopping on top of a train, the necessity of freedom, and then how do we get there is kind of like an open-ended question. How do you get a desire? How do you get to a desired location? How do you organize your travel and take advantage of existing infrastructures if you don't quite have the means? And it takes cues from the different concepts presented by Paiki Santarém book of anti-racist mobility and how mobility serves as a social spatial segregation point. It's like an active agent and constructor of the policy of distancing. Yeah, and that's a take from the last bit of the film. It was also an installation at the Geneva train station. Lancy Brushwood is in French. I don't speak French, so. And then later was presented in South Korea, also in Seoul's first train station. So it's a work that has been touring in train stations because also it's based on my experience growing up in Rio and needing to take the train for hours. That's it. Sorry if it was too rushed. Thank you so much.
Hello. All right, this is good. Yeah. Thank you. Hello. Thanks for being here. My name is Kevin Peter Hu. I'm an artist, and my work often asks, how do systems, technological, architectural, ecological, shape the stories we tell, and how do they shape us in return? I build fictional worlds with game engines and sculpture to explore what it means to live within systems we don't fully understand, yet must navigate, interpret, and ultimately reimagine. I come from a background as a filmmaker and freestyle dancer, two practices shaped by rhythm, pacing, and the push-pull of structure and improvisation. For years, I worked as the creative director at the XR Studio Zero Space, where we use technologies such as LED volumes, game engines, motion capture, photogrammetry to create immersive productions. I led large-scale commercial projects across fashion, music, and tech for brands like Nike, Cartier, and artists like One-O-Tricks Point Never, where we use real-time tools to blend physical experience with digital environments. But over time, I began to see these tools and production pipelines differently. I wasn't just operating them, I was performing with them. Production equipment became instruments, the act of filmmaking became choreography, and the narrative wasn't the end product, but the process. This shift led to my practice of live cinema, where I perform a film on stage using real-time systems. I build visual instruments like this one, inspired by cinema cameras and projectors. Mounted on an articulated arm, it controls the virtual camera in a live simulation as I move it, similar to the principle to the tracking systems used in virtual production. Each show is different. I perform the cinematic language, lighting, framing, and edits, while a musician performs a live score. Similar to how I dance, I improvise and respond to the music. They do the same to the visuals. It becomes a feedback loop, a duet, a kind of audiovisual jazz. These performances aren't just image and sound. They're worlds with their own internal physics, moods, and rules. The story isn't scripted in advance. It emerges through composition, pacing, and proximity. What's revealed, what's avoided, what the camera chooses to linger on, that's where the narrative takes shape. This comes together in Passage, the work I'm showing here at Demo, both as a performance and installation. It's set in a cybernetic forest, a speculative ecosystem built and simulated live in a game engine, a world where organic life and infrastructure are inseparable. At first, it feels sublime, glowing sunrises, lush foliage, lightning storms. But none of it is truly natural. The sun is an artificial lamp, the lightning is a surge in the power grid, and the fire comes from a system breakdown. Here, beauty is engineered, the sublime is synthetic. Every awe-inspiring moment is a result of underlying control. This mirrors how I grew up between Shanghai and New York, urban metropolises where nature is always shaped by planning, policy, and capital. And now in the digital age, our experience of nature is increasingly mediated through simulations, screens, and hyperreal renderings. Passage reflects that world back to us, a world where nature is not untouched, but shaped by technology and the governments behind them. In the performance, we follow a creature born underground, climbing nonstop towards the sunrise at the top of the mountain. Along the way, it reveals the hidden logic of the world it inhabits. For New Ink, I wanted to ground the piece, to give the world I had built, so often seen on screen, a material presence, something spatial and durational. At first, I adapted into a video installation, but then I visited this space. 180 Maiden Lane, where we are now, is an indoor public park. Its lobby full of manicured plants, particularly these trees. They're Ficus benjamina, a species known in the wild for its sprawling aerial roots. But here in the lobby, they're ornamental, trimmed, contained, domesticated into symbols of nature rather than expressions of it. I wanted to respond to that containment. The result is Passage still growth, a sculptural prosthetic, a phantom limb for an organism held in stasis. I hammered, bent, and shaped man-made materials, electrical conduit pipe, concrete, and resin into organic forms, mimicking the growth the ficus tree has been denied. Beside it, 3 screens display a live simulation of the Passage world, as if the tree were dreaming a digital forest it can't reach. The virtual camera drifts autonomously, seeking, tumbling, and hovering. Where the tree is rooted, the camera floats. This installation becomes a dialogue between sculpture and screen, nature and infrastructure, presence and projection. One physical, one ephemeral, both entangled. At its core, Passage is about learning to live within systems. It asks, how does control operate quietly? How does agency shift between bodies and machines, between action and observation? These works don't exist in a singular form. They're ecosystems, modular, adaptive, shaped by context, and sustained by the technologies, architectures, and narratives they reflect. You can experience Passage as a live performance tonight and tomorrow right here at 9:50 p.m. at Disco Kina, where I'll be performing with Bobby Beethoven, formerly known as Total Freedom, and as an installation right around the corner here through June 22nd. I'm looking to bring Passage in its different forms to new contexts: museums, festivals, hybrid venues, spaces where systems thinking, embodied performance, and speculative world building can converge. And I'm beginning work on a next chapter, a dance theater meets live cinema piece set in a fictional factory system that explores labor, repetition, and agency through synchronized movement and procedural architecture. It draws on my upbringing in Shanghai and the silent systems of progress I grew up inside. If you're a curator, collaborator, or just curious, I'd love to connect. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. How's it going? We love XR, but its distribution is murky, and I want to talk about it today with coral biology. These are corals. They're amazing. Although they look like plants, corals are actually animals. They're animals that make their own food, and they do this with the help of zooxanthelle, a type of algae that live within their tissues. Corals and algae live in a mutually beneficial relationship. Corals give the algae shelter. The algae use the coral's waste to produce the energy the corals need to survive. They also give corals their vibrant color. You might be wondering, why is she talking about corals, algae, and XR distribution? Honestly, that's a great question. Thanks for asking. Just for now, as in this presentation, let's define XR as creative experiments with immersive technology, okay? And let's say XR distribution is the delivery of these works to larger audiences. Audiences not like us in this room, okay? People who are not familiar with art and technology. I want to bring us back to corals and algae for a second. You see, when ocean temperatures rise because of climate stress, pollution, low tides, the algae leave the coral. This makes the coral more susceptible to disease. Some even die without it. You might have heard of this as coral bleaching. And what you're seeing in this video is the expulsion of that algae from the coral, the slow loss of a lifeline. I'm going to get back to this, but for now, let me introduce myself. My name is Srushti, and I'm the founder of Algae, a Singapore-based entity. This is me at 5.5 years old, and starting at this age, I moved 11 schools, 25 homes, hopping between Singapore, India, and the US. And I bring this all up because all I've ever really known is change. And the one thing I've learned about surviving rapid change is that sustenance requires long-term thinking, and not like 5 to 10 years, but 50, 100 generations. Through my 20s, I became a producer and an academic, in that I like to make things happen, reflect on them, and then place them within historical context. And through these endeavors, I saw pretty quickly that creative work is a layered ecosystem filled with visibility and murkiness. We love seeing final output, right? But we don't always see what invisible layers hold it up, even us in the industry. We see the coral, in this case, the final output. We don't see the invisible algae. Are we getting this parallel? Can I just get a thumbs up if we, okay, thank you, that's helpful. But they live in symbiosis, right? They're mutually beneficial. With XR, these layers become even more complex. So let's take a hypothetical. Say you make a VR experience about the ocean and it's premiered at a film festival. You want to bring it to more people. The first step is to ask, what is the algae holding this VR work together? Is it the game engine in which you've built the world? Is it the hardware, the companies owning the hardware, the raw materials? Is it individual creative assets making up the game world? Is it your team, the designers, the artists, the developers? Is it the necessity of a premiere status at a film festival, right? Something more abstract, but still important. Naming the invisible stuff, the algae, keeping the VR work, the coral alive, is why algae media was started. When you render the invisible visible, you can start reclaiming power. But we can't reclaim power and build anew if we don't speak truth to it. Since I started this 2 years ago, much has changed, and through extensive conversations, I have arrived at a surprising, hopefully evocative question for you all today. What if, instead of XR distribution, we used XR for redistribution? Redistribution of excess. Look at the times we're living in, right? Wealth, knowledge, tools. Let's go back to our VR experience about the ocean. Imagine this little coral is the project, okay? It's a little visual cue. We decide that the project is giving way too much business to Meta, but we need the headset, and Meta is leaving us high and dry. So we partner with a small, sustainable business, a seaweed soap company. I saw one in Brooklyn the other day, and we offer a profit share. Maybe we open a membership program with the quarterly magazine. Maybe we tap into the diving community around the world to be featured and distribute the magazine for a cost. I don't know. Maybe we do a BTS video series. These all could be terrible, terrible ideas. But my point is this. XR itself might not be easily scalable, and we might not want to contribute to their scale. But other small offerings are, right? And those offerings can build strong audiences who get to both experience your work while knowing that they're supporting material outcomes. We can create self-sustaining, audience-powered solidarity economies. And that's why unmurkying, I'm not sure if that's a word, but unmurkying distribution is so powerful. I don't want to see a world in which we lose amazing experiments with technology that could actually make real-world impact just because we're not willing to have a few uncomfortable conversations. In order to do this, we're going to do two things over the next year at Algae. The first is we're launching a newsletter with just 3 drops for the rest of the year, exploring this key question, broken down even further, questions like how do we build long-term agreement structures for redistribution. We'll offer case studies on relevant IP usage, so examples from history. We'll also be updating and documenting our second endeavor, which is to build a mixed fund with both philanthropic and investment goals to get such projects funded and supported. I want to end with this. We need excellent, bold, and brave artistic experiments with technology. But artistic and experimental bravery can do so much more than fuel art. It can fuel a new type of economics. Because remember this visual? When ocean temperatures rise, algae survive. We need to parse out our algae to reclaim the symbiosis. So to XR makers, I ask this: where is your algae? What is your algae, the invisible structure holding your work together? Therein lies a deeper creative question. Then the real redistribution can begin. This is my email. This is a QR code to the newsletter if you're interested in this topic. I'm in New York till the end of July. Please reach out, and thank you so much to my support system, and thank you for being here tonight. Take care.
Hi. Thank you for being here. Over the next few minutes, I'm aiming to take you into my journey from doodling to worlding with the augmented reality mobile tool I've been building called Tangle. I'm Johanna Flato, and a visual artist by background, app developer by evolution, necessity, curiosity, and AI assistance, and a lifelong compulsive doodler. Can we go back? I can go back. Yeah. Across these identifiers, I've had a sustained interest in the intersection of place, thought, gesture, space. It led me eventually to a curiosity and a frustration with these powerful spatial tools we already have in our pockets. Let's be real, most often directly in our hands and appendage themselves. A tool for better than ever before peer connection, navigation, computer vision, and LiDAR depth sensing. And yet it absorbs us, becoming a foundational yet passive, extractive, dislocating, dissociating relationship. We're disconnected from our surroundings, despite the tool's ability to capture, measure, message, scroll, navigate. As an artist, I've historically had a research-based practice with an emphasis on sight, particularly its relationship to the virtual and the digital. However, despite this focus, I found I was actually on a day-to-day basis more connected to my screen than the environments around me. I longed to re-engage my surroundings, to scribble in the margins like I would a book. How instead, I wondered, could this tool be used in a more situated, active, embodied manner? That's what I was looking for. I wanted to be able to string threads like Fred Sandback, filter light like Robert Irwin, sculpt words like Jenny Holzer, remix the digital and the physical like Artie Vierkant, assemble image worlds like Sarah Z. I wanted to be able to work in similar ways, but more flexibly, to think, create, iterate, play on the fly, out in the world, possibly and aspirationally alongside others. For that to be possible, I needed an augmented reality toolkit that was nimble, joyful to use, versatile, site-specific, collaborative, and this translated in concrete functional terms to a real-time mobile app, something that had a fluid and intuitive interface, a customizable toolkit, offered seamless localization, and multi-user publishing capabilities. This is how that lined up to some of the existing apps in the landscape out there. None were a fit. None would allow me to mark up the world on the fly, nimbly, persistently. The tool just didn't exist. So I built it. My approach to interface and experience was driven by a desire to be situated, embodied, and gesture-based. This was the result in these kind of UX elements, a situating palette that drew from the scene, moving through and with the device, and prioritizing tuning over tapping. And as I built it, I began to realize that this foundational way of spatial thinking was relevant to others as well. For the amateur, whether a child or a hobbyist, the emphasis is on the nimble, joyful element. And I may or may not be advocating for screen time for children here, but if you imagine a child freed to draw all over your couch and the walls, but in a virtual boundless layer, it extends a person rather than absorbing them. And meanwhile, the architect or interior designer, a professional use case, introduces the need and opportunity for a collaborative feature of the tool, while also requiring its toolkit versatility, on-site nimbleness, and site-specific accuracy. Using simple forms and planes, you can mock up alongside a client in real time an entire interior layout, bringing them into the vision as you talk it through. An institution, meanwhile, requires something light, fun, accessible, and again, site-specific, where these layers can aggregate, where with each new visitor adding their own bit of flair, their own signature. Finally, the community use case brings this together in perhaps my favorite way. You're walking down the street, passing post-no-bills stencils on boards blocking newly demolished sites, and with an app like Tangle, someone could paper those post-no-bills walls with archival imagery, keeping lost layers alive, in situ, for others to encounter. And someone else could sample, remix those layers into textures, and yet another person could interpret graffiti digitally. So, I'll move over here. What form will community creation at a world scale, this imminent spatial web, take? Doodling, annotating, prototyping, it's speculatively powerful. It's at the root, I would argue, of innovation and communication. But what powers it? What are its protocols, and who decides? Right now, Snap, Niantic, Google, Meta, Apple, a group of incumbent walled gardens with largely proprietary systems that can't interact with, publish to, and be discovered by each other. They want you locked in and aren't motivated to make it more open. It's also quite technically challenging. But what if instead our AR protocols, publishing formats, and localizing frameworks were civically minded, lightweight, embedded, interoperable? It would make entire new layers of the world writable, craftable, discoverable across time, place, and device. So please watch this space. That's what's in the pipeline. Anthropologist Tim Ingold writes, "The living world, in truth, is not connected like a net, but a writhing mesh of lines. Knotted in their midst, their loose ends never cease to root for some other lines to tangle with. So please come tangle. Try it. That's my main ask. Try the beta, and then get involved. Reach out, sign up, and help us shape what's next. Let me know what you would like in that toolkit for it to be a part of your process. If you're an artist, we'll be doing an AR installation, decentralized in the world, later in the summer and early fall, so follow social for that. And if you're a teen, come out on Friday because we'll be workshopping it around here and using it to respond. And then finally, if you're interested in some of the protocols I was talking about, please reach out directly and we can chat about what it'll take to build. Thank you.
Hello. I'd like us to start with a breath. If you can close your eyes if you feel comfortable, or maybe just soften your gaze and take in a breath. Just hold that breath for a moment and then let that breath ease out of you. Imagine the ticking clock stops. Your busy life, all the demands and the stresses pause. Take in a breath for your lungs. Your body is nature, and nature provides for you every second without you even asking. And you can come back to the room. I've been thinking about time, not our atomic clocks that have to be adjusted every few decades to slow down to the Earth's rotation, and not colonial clocks bent on extraction, production, devastation, urgency, but time held in the Earth's skin. Its 4.5 billion years of resource regeneration and its inherent ability to heal. My name is Zavé. I'm an artist and a choreographer, and I'm making an installation that uses sound, sculpture, meditation, and performance to decompose empire, and the work is called ASMR for Apocalypse. ASMR is that calm feeling and that kind of tingly sensation that some people feel when they hear really soft sounds, and it became a kind of YouTube sensation to trigger that euphoria. But in ASMR for Apocalypse, you will not hear mundane sounds.
The Earth has survived 5 mass extinction events. These transformations wiped out almost all of the 4 billion species that have existed. Your existence is extraordinary. You are 1% of species on Earth not extinct. Think of your ancestors. Microbes, corals, trilobites, fish, evergreen forests, amphibians, coal-laden swamps, dinosaurs, primates, grassy plains, then you.
This meditation traces through how our bodies and the material world around us are all made of the same atomic matter, and leads you to a powerful military institution that we all know, and you'll visualize its future composting in millions of years from today. I won't give away all the juicy parts. I invite you to come to the installation here at Demo and listen. This work is a love letter to our material world, to the metals, rocks, plastic, and organics trapped in this built environment. These materials took millions of years to form, and they had lives long before we turned them into things, and they never consented to become tools of empire. In my installation, discarded household waste, plastics, street trash, and kitchen compost are given new life. They're mixed like cement into sculptures, and I place them on altars with mugwort, a medicine for lucid dreaming that grows as weeds in the city. I get branches during climate disasters, and I turn them into sculptures, adorning them in biodegradable plastics that I make with turmeric and beet juice and seaweed. And their motion is frozen in time. Dance and ritual are key elements in this work to turn on the senses. In a work in progress this April, I fed my friends and audiences mugwort jellies. When we attune to our bodies and when we listen to the natural world, we change the world. We can unwind trauma through the body. Relaxing the body and mind opens up our capacity, the possibilities, and all of this transformation. And here at Demo, you'll hear a spatialized soundtrack with binaural beats. That sound design specifically focuses your brain activity and calms your anxiety. In this world of injustice, as institutions around us are crumbling, as we fear for our future, I invite you to rest and to listen deeply, to envision the future, to feel into possibility with me, and tune into the inevitable fact that this unsustainable world that we built just in a matter of a few centuries will self-destruct and regenerate into something new. And we can remember now that we are fully equipped to dismantle all the harms that we have created. I produced a performance in progress in Philadelphia, and I'm so thrilled to have an installation here at Demo. And I'm looking for partners to complete this work. I would love to talk with venues, curators, museums to find a premier home in New York City and take this work on tour. And I'd love to talk with sponsors and funders about the production needs. And I'm happy to give you a tour if you're interested, a walkthrough of the installation. And please get in touch with me as well if you'd like to be part of some ritual activations later this month. So let's end where we started, with the breath. Again, you can soften your gaze, look down, or you can close your eyes if you feel comfortable. Take in a full breath, and then let that breath out. And on your next breath, remember, in the first year of pandemic, air and noise pollution dropped 50%. Animals reemerged, plants flourished, ecosystems healed quickly. Now imagine trillions of dollars, the massive US military budget. Imagine all the structures, buildings, projects, employees, knowledge, belief systems, power, loyalty this money supports. Imagine all that matter and energy melting into a fine mist that disperses and floats through the universe to find another form to re-materialize into. Take in a breath for your body and breathe out a breath for our future beyond empire. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tina Tarighian, and what you're looking at right now is my splash page on my personal website, www.tina.zone. There are only two categories on this website, work and art, and I think for a lot of traditional artists, these two things had to be seen at odds with each other. What I've learned in the last year at New Ink is that this doesn't have to be true. And in fact, the through line between working as a creative technologist and making art as a web artist is that you have to rhythmically and repeatedly go from idea to execution. More concretely for my practice, that looks like actually doing the thing, which is development, code, design, deployment, and then spending a ton of time thinking about the comms, which is how you're going to get it out there to the world and explain highly technical concepts to hopefully a viral audience, and pushing that out through a personal channel like Tina Zone. Some of the work I've made in the past year with New Ink include on Tina Zone installing an emotion detecting camera to make sure you all liked me, an email lottery system called sayonemorething.com, which had a 1 in 1 million chance of actually sending your email, a website called fumbledating.com, which turns all users into AI chatbots who fumble each other over and over and over again, and most recently, whatdoesmyhusbandlooklike.com, which uses AI native image out to surface AI training bias by assuming what your husband would look like from a picture of your face. But today, I'm here to talk about my new concept, digital pheromones, AKA your Instagram Explore page. There are only two people who know you better than you know yourself, your mother and Mark Zuckerberg, who for the better half of the last 20 years has watched your every move. Instagram's algorithm watches you watch its content, how long you linger on something, if you're going to comment on something, if you comment, if you like it, if you follow the person who posted it, if the person you follow follows somebody else, your age, your gender, your location. All of these things go into account for your recommendations on your Instagram Explore page. The same way that diet and exercise affect your actual pheromones, like how you smell, your diet of consuming media and your exercise of scrolling through it inform your digital pheromone, your Instagram recommendations. This has made Instagram uniquely good at extremely targeted ads, like this deep fake of Charlie XCX peddling half-off Les Crucettes that I got a few days ago. But I thought to myself, with such a rich material that disrupts governments, that makes millionaires overnight, that makes me feel fat from time to time, I thought, how could we actually repurpose this for ourselves? So this is me, cat hair, pimple, chillin'. This is also me the same day. This is me, sunburnt, middle seat economy flight. But this was also me the same day. In fact, looking at my For You page is like looking into a mirror of all of my digital micro-interactions and interests over the last 10 years, which is most of my adult life. But this, on the other hand, this is like probably not me. This is something I had to learn how to curate to make other people want me. And it's also the same curation I'm judging other people on the app. I think as a foundation of a digital paradigm that you have to learn to make yourself likable or presentable is a pretty bad foundation for love. Especially when you think about things like smell. This Redditor posted, "I'm obsessed with the way my boyfriend smells. I even have a ranking in my head of exes by smell. I broke up with a guy one time who was 6'3", decent sexual partner, had money, and was extremely kind and open, all because he didn't smell good to me. He wasn't gross, he just didn't have that smell." This got me to thinking, how can we combine natural essences that we emit with digital paradigms that we're already familiar with, like Hinge and Tinder? Maybe something like this. I'm so excited to announce the launch of www.rhythm.love, my newest project, which allows us to resurface the digital material of Instagram recommendations to find the one, also known as algorithm love. So cute. So why www.rhythm.love? First, no profile curation. You can only upload one thing. Second, no dumb prompts. It doesn't ask you about the soundtrack to your life. 3, there's no algorithm except for the one that you bring into the app. So we don't score you based on how hot you are. It's just random. And it very literally launches right now, but here's how you actually use Rhythm. So first, you upload a screenshot of your Instagram Explore page, which we're calling a scroll shot. Then immediately after that, you get to understand what your pheromone is. So mine a few days ago was a chaotic neutral flux of cottagecore, absurdist humor, and aspirational careerism, radiating a low-frequency hum of ironic self-deprecation and a latent yearning for validation. True. 3, and most importantly, is that you find your scroll mate. When you match with someone on Rhythm, you can unlock their Instagram and you can continue the messaging through there. And I send you like 10 spammy emails. And for those of you dying to try it, this is the QR code to get on www.rhythm.love. And Oprah moment, for those of you here, there are these airbrush cards designed by Carlos Sanchez, the best designer in the world, who humored me into making an airbrushed replica of my For You page on that day. And if you tap the center, it'll take you right to rhythm.love. Just tap it with your phone, obviously. Okay, anyway. Okay, so the app is launched. What's next for Rhythm? I'm super excited to say that the concept of Rhythm got picked up by a media production company and is turning into a man-on-the-street style show this summer. So watch out for that, yeah. There's IRL speed dating at LARPA in Bushwick at the end of July, which I'd love to see you guys at. And then, of course, the ultimate dream of any developer is for a few lines of code to result in 2 people having a baby. So by the end of this year, we're looking forward to having a scrollmate baby. What's poignantly not next for something like rhythm.love is to think about accepting VC funding, getting any sort of money at all, or scaling to about like 1 billion users. This is something that just comes from the heart and will grow organically, and it's not in the best interest of the people for us to expand things like this. But what is definitely, hopefully next, is collaborating with people who want to make physical objects or do things in physical spaces, like giant phallic fingers to scroll on your phone with, or exploring screenshots of Explore pages as ideas of self-portrait. So if you're interested in that, hit me up. And I wanted to end this note as the last person to speak in my cohort to talk about the cleverness of New Ink to call this track extended reality. A year ago, for me, that meant doing augmented reality fashion shows, virtual reality immersive experiences. But in the last year, actually working in creative technology, the ubiquity of AI, data surveillance, all these algorithms just feels like the most extended reality could have ever gotten with my personal data. And that felt like the thing I needed to respond to in this track, and I'm thankful for the room to do that. This is a tease of some of my upcoming projects. I would love, love, love to talk to you guys after. So just find me. Thanks.
Round of applause. All right, we have a quick round of panel and questioning. So I'm gonna get started, warm up the room a little bit, and then go through some questions. But first, there is something so special about demo season. It puts something special in the air. It energizes me, it energizes everyone I'm around, and it's always so nice to be here with you all. It's wonderful to see so many new and familiar faces in the audience. How's everyone feeling about demo so far? And the talks from XR Track and Gabriel, killing it. So for those of you who are seeing my face for the first time, hi, my name is Danielle McPhatter. I am the track mentor for the Extended Realities track, and it's been a pleasure mentoring the XR track for the past 3 whole years as a longtime collaborator with New Ink and New Museum at EY's Intelligent Reality Labs, previously EY Metaverse Labs. I'm always so honored to be a part of the New Ink journey for so many of these multi-hyphenate, multi-dimensional artists, musicians, performers, every kind of thing and the like. So I'm really excited to put these kind of works in conversation with each other through our paneling. So let's just hop right in with questions. So throughout your presentations, you all had posed some really important questions to the audience that I want to put these questions in dialogue live. So extended realities, or XR, is kind of this broad term that generally refers to immersive experience that connects both the physical and the virtual world in some way. But you all have been alluding to so many different and new connections that XR can facilitate through your work, through your performances and practice. What are some of the most inspiring connections that XR creates for you, and what excites you about them? Anyone?
I think when I'm a newbie to XR, and I think when I think about that medium, so often I think about stepping outside, going into another reality. And what I'm learning so much through this cohort is that it can reconnect us to our material world and reconnect us to ourselves. And rather than a distancing mechanism, it can be used as a reflection tool. So that's sort of the modality I'm most interested in.
Amazing.
Yeah, just something that I was thinking about as everyone was presenting. One of the beautiful qualities of everyone's work here is that it's inherently self-reflexive on technology itself. So yes, the artists here are using technology, but they're also commenting on technology as a system. And I think that is something I'm excited to see more of.
I don't know if this will proper answer that, but I think I used to really view extended reality as something you had to go out and build. Like you had to go out and make the VR experience, you had to go out and introduce all of these people and onboard them onto how your AR technology works. And now, this ubiquity of software being everywhere and people generating code within seconds, to me feels less like I'm building an extended reality and rather stepping into it and responding to it directly.
I guess for me, so often we think of XR as technology, but I think more so it's what lingers after the experience. It's the human imagination that the technology triggers that's interesting. So, we think of XR as headsets, as AR apps and things like that, but it's more kind of the imagination that we can extend beyond the tech itself that's constantly shifting and changing and also being rewritten by other people.
I also think it's technology allows us to to trace these. I'm going to go back, gestures is the word I was using a lot, but literally, we've been doing it forever. You have dreams. You try to communicate in this way. You've always been trying to extend the reality and sketch in space and communicate between people. And so I think it just allows us to add those layers into the world. And again, I would agree with Tina, just in a more integrated way. It's the measurement app on the iPhone is an AR tool, and that's just something that we're starting to see be a part of the way we move through the world.
Yeah, it's really amazing to think about just how much you can experience and talk about just within a single XR experience. The track here has talked about how it can facilitate new ways of spatial thinking, embodiment, connections to people, different organisms in different places, spaces, and times. So it's really interesting how much can be collapsed into a physical and virtual medium for you all to experience and learn and imagine with the creations that everyone has made here. I want to relate a little bit back to Srushti's presentation on algae and the invisible layers that support your work, because I think the distribution question and those invisible layers are really important to consider. So I'm curious of you all, what are those missing pieces or steps for you all? Who are the collaborators or communities that you're looking to connect with to better strengthen those invisible layers that drive and support your work?
Anything that makes it more accessible. I think we are seeing, we're seeing the tools, we're seeing our phones are really powerful, but the ability to make that accessible to people and actually integrate it into our lives is still outstanding and needs to be considered in a community-oriented manner. Something that people can build and that can build with each other.
Yeah, honestly, with the idea of accessibility, I think, again, I feel like I keep saying that just there's so many technological advancements coming to light. If you can make work that really clearly distills what those things are and make people super aware of the technology around them, I find that to be extremely helpful. Like a project I briefly referenced, whatdoesmyhusbandlooklike.com, is like a direct response for people to understand how visual seeding works with AI technology and how there's so much bias in the training data that goes into these models. So for me, I think the invisible algae is probably humor to quickly onboard people onto pretty complicated, big things that are happening they might not even know about.
I think for my work, the invisible algae is time and space and people. It's actually very much about rest and taking time to consider our world and taking time to consider how we are implicated in its faults and its harms, and then also to really, through the body, somatically experience that things are different, things can be different, things were different. So maybe it's this sort of imagination, and for me, that imagination comes from radical community. So that's always, and my friends here in the room who supported me to make this work, like, that's always undergirding.
We have a couple more minutes left, and maybe we'll do a really quick round robin as we get to the last question here. So after all your talks today, what are you really hoping that the audience takes away? If you have one big fat question that you want them to reflect on, what's in your headspace?
Do you believe that we can compost war machines in our lifetime?
Statement, elevate doodling. It's more meaningful than we give it credit for.
What is your algae?
I don't know, that like XR isn't defined to just the technology.
Find your scroll mate, www.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for your time. I think that's about it for all we have for the panel, but I really, and I can't say really enough, encourage you all to not let your curiosity and interest stop here. There's so many more mind-blowing talks, installations, and performances that are happening throughout Demo, so please be open, please explore. And as always, it's such an honor to be with the XR track as the mentor and the New Ink community, celebrating all this incredible work that has come through such a talented group of artists across all of the tracks. Thank you so much, audience members, for your time and your intrigue, and thanks so much again to the XR track for starting off this series with such a bang.